The planet Velmora was famous across the galaxy for its beauty, wisdom, and strange tradition. Every royal child of Velmora had to bond with a protector at a young age. This bond was not just emotional, it was spiritual. Once bonded, the protector could feel the royal's thoughts, pain, and emotions. It was a sacred connection. Without a bond, a royal could not survive for long. Without a bond, the throne remained silent. And Princess Lyra's throne had stayed silent for 16 long years. She was born blind. Her body was fragile. Her hands trembled when she tried to hold anything. Her legs couldn't walk without help. Many called her cursed. Some even said she should have been hidden away. But her parents, the king and queen, hoped for a miracle. Every year, they invited warriors, nobles, and leaders from across space to meet her. All were given a chance to bond. None accepted. Lyra sat in her golden throne, dressed in the softest blue robes. Her long silver hair touched the ground. Her empty eyes never blinked too fast, but they saw nothing. She looked like a porcelain. Dull, beautiful, but breakable. She never spoke. Not because she couldn't, but because no one ever listened. Guards stood around the throne room. Velvet banners of the Velmorian crown hung from the ceiling. The room smelled of fresh flowers and burned crystal incense. The court had gathered once again. Another bonding ceremony. Another waste of time. The announcer, a tall alien with 6 arms, called out the name of the next visitor, Commander Varn of Sector 17. A tall alien in dark armor stepped forward. He looked at Lyra once, then looked away. He didn't even bother to speak. He bowed quickly to the king, turned around, and walked out without saying a word. The queen sighed. The king's face tightened with frustration. One by one, every candidate refused. She is blind. She is weak. She will die within a year. These were the whispers in the crowd. But Lyra heard them all. She always heard everything. At the end of the line stood one last name on the guest list. Not a warrior, not a prince, not even an ambassador. Just a human. A janitor. His name was Jack. Jack wasn't supposed to be there. He was assigned to clean the lower halls of the palace. He came to Velmora after his ship broke down. To pay for repairs, he took the first job he could find cleaning floors. He had no armor, no weapons, just a simple uniform, dirty boots, and a mop. Somehow, through a strange mix-up, his name ended up on the bonding list. Everyone laughed when they saw him walk in. Even the guards chuckled. The queen raised her eyebrow. Is this some kind of joke? Jack scratched his head. I think I'm in the wrong room. The king looked at the paper. Jack, of Earth? Yeah, that's me, just a cleaner. You are here for the bonding ceremony? No, sir, I was just cleaning the hall. Someone gave me this card. The queen looked annoyed. Remove him. But before anyone could move, Lyra turned her head slightly. Her lips parted. Her voice, soft and clear, echoed across the hall. Let him stay. Gasps filled the room. Lyra hadn't spoken in years. The king stood. Lyra? She repeated. Let him stay. Everyone was frozen. Even Jack didn't know what to say. But he was curious. No one had ever asked him to stay before. He slowly stepped forward, looking into Lyra's blind eyes. They didn't scare him. In fact, he thought they were beautiful in a strange way. Lyra smiled for the first time. It was small, but real. She didn't ask him to bond. She didn't ask him to kneel. She only asked, will you talk to me? Jack blinked. Sure. He sat cross-legged on the cold floor near her throne. Everyone stared. The room was dead silent. But Lyra and Jack talked like old friends. Not about politics, not about war, just life. He told her about Earth, about pizza, about snow. She laughed quietly. No one had ever made her laugh. For the first time, the throne room wasn't silent. For the first time, Lyra wasn't alone. The royal Court did not understand it yet, but something ancient had just awakened. Something deeper than duty. Something stronger than fear. A bond had started, and it began with a janitor. The next morning, the royal palace was full of whispers. Servants talked in corners. The guards looked at each other with raised eyebrows. Even the high nobles paused their meetings. All were asking the same question. Why did the blind princess speak to a human janitor? But Princess Lyra didn't care about the whispers. For the first time in her life, she felt something new, not magic, not strength. Hope. She sat quietly in her garden room, surrounded by glowing crystal trees. Her hands rested in her lap, and though her eyes were empty, her mind was alive. She waited, listening. And then soft footsteps, not heavy like the soldiers, not sharp like the nobles. These were lazy human footsteps. He was back. "Hey," Jack said, rubbing the back of his neck. "I brought something." Lyra tilted her head. "What is it?" He reached into his dirty pouch and pulled out something strange. It smelled odd, a little sweet, a little burnt. "I made pancakes," he said with a grin. "Well, sorta. Velmorian flour isn't the same as Earth's. But I tried." Lyra took it carefully. Her hand still shook a little. She brought the edge to her lips and tasted it slowly. She said. "Strange texture, very warm, but not bad," Jack laughed. "I'll take it. Better than space rations." Lyra smiled, but then her face turned serious. "Why are you really here, Jack? Everyone else leaves. Everyone else runs." Jack looked down. His fingers played with a blade of glowing grass. "I don't know," he admitted. "Maybe because I don't see you the way they do." "They see a curse," she whispered. "A broken thing." "Well," Jack said, "I see a girl who laughed at my bad jokes and ate my weird pancakes. That's more real to me than any of their titles." Lyra paused. "You really see me?" "I think I do," Jack said quietly. "Even if your eyes don't work, your soul shines brighter than theirs." For a moment, the garden seemed to glow around her. A pulse of gentle energy moved through the air. In the palace security room, a red light blinked. Bond pulse detected. The guards didn't believe it. "It must be a glitch," one said. "No royal has bonded in 20 years, said another. "And never with a human." But the energy was real. Something was growing between the two, not just words, something deeper. Later that day, the royal council gathered. They sat in a half circle, their long robes dragging across the polished floors. The High Chancellor, a tall alien with blue skin and golden eyes, spoke in a cold voice. "The princess has shown activity. She speaks, she smiles. This change is linked to the human." The queen looked unsure. "He is not trained, not tested, not even noble." The king frowned. "But Lyra is changing, for the better. Bonding with a lower species is dangerous," said another elder. "What if the link becomes unstable? What if it saves her life?" The king shot back. Silence followed. Finally the chancellor spoke again. "We must observe. Allow the human to visit. But under guard." Everyone agreed. But not all were happy. Some in the shadows didn't want the princess to bond. Her death meant a new heir could rise. Power could change hands. A plan began to form. That evening, Lyra and Jack sat beside the glowing pond in the moonlight. The alien moons made the water shimmer like diamonds. Jack threw tiny pebbles and watched the ripples. "Back on Earth," he said. "I was just a nobody. No family, no future." Lyra turned her head toward him. "You came all the way across space just to become a janitor?" "I guess I came here to feel something. Maybe to be someone." She touched his hand gently. "You already are." The bond pulsed again, this time stronger. Lyra didn't feel cold for the first time in years. Her hands stopped shaking. "And Jack?" He suddenly heard her thoughts, not in words, but in emotions. She was lonely, afraid. But she was also brave, and she was starting to trust him. "Lyra," he said softly, "if they let me, I'll stay." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Please do." In the royal tower, someone watched them through a glowing crystal screen. A shadowy figure pressed a button. "Begin phase 1, the voice growled. "If the human gets too close, eliminate him." And far below, the bond between the broken princess and the human janitor grew stronger. Fate had just been rewritten by two souls who were never supposed to meet. The palace bells rang 3 times. An emergency meeting had been called. Inside the grand assembly hall, every council member had gathered. Their faces were tense, their eyes filled with disbelief. Whispers echoed through the room like insects. Crawling over stone, the human touched her hand. He brought her food, human food. She laughed in front of him. At the center of the room, the royal high chancellor slammed his staff against the crystal floor. The hall fell silent. "This is a disgrace to our traditions," he bellowed. "A blind and broken princess bonding with a human janitor? It's madness." The queen's hands trembled in her lap. Her heart was torn. She had watched her daughter suffer in silence for 16 years. But now, after one meeting with that strange human, Lyra was awake, alive. Still, she remained quiet. The king, however, stood up. "Enough," he said firmly. "Tradition has left my daughter empty and alone. But this human, this Jackie, has done what none of us could. He brought her back." The chancellor narrowed his eyes. "At what cost?" "If a bond forms between two incompatible species, it may collapse violently. It could damage her mind. It could kill her." Another elder leaned forward. "Or worse, it could change her." The word hung in the air like poison. "Change her?" The king asked coldly. "Yes, make her think differently. Act differently. Think like a human." Gasps, frowns, murmurs. To the council, thinking like a human meant chaos, weakness, emotion without logic. To them, it was a step backward. But none of them had seen Lyra smile. None had heard her whisper softly in the gardens. None had felt the bond pulse between two souls that never should have touched. The chancellor slammed his staff again. "I demand the human be removed. His presence is a danger to our world." But before a vote could be cast, a voice echoed from the side door. "I don't think I'm the danger here." Jack walked in. 2 guards tried to block him, but the princess herself had granted him entry, and in Velmorian law, a royal command could not be denied. His clothes were simple. His boots still had a patch of cleaning fluid on them. But his eyes, they were steady, and he wasn't afraid. "I didn't come to break your rules," Jack said calmly. "I came here by mistake. But I met someone who made me stay." The chancellor's voice was ice. "You dare speak in this hall?" "I dare because she asked me to." "She's not of sound mind." Jack stepped closer. "No, she is stronger than any of you." Gasps echoed again. The guards reached for their staves, but then came a soft voice, sharp and royal. "Stand down." All turned. Princess Lyra stood in the doorway. She held onto the wall with one trembling hand, but she stood on her own. The room froze. She hadn't entered the assembly in 5 years. "Leave him alone," she said, her voice calm. "He is not a danger." The chancellor's face twisted in fury. "He is not bonded. He is not chosen. He is not worthy. I choose him," she said. The bond pulse hit the room like thunder. Every member felt it. A wave of warm, living energy. It came from her, centered in her chest, but it stretched across the room and touched Jack. For a brief moment, even the council felt their connection. Real, powerful, alive. "No," the queen whispered, tears in her eyes. "It's not possible." But it was. The bond was forming. Naturally. Silently. Without ritual or rule. And that terrified them more than anything. The chancellor's voice cracked. This breaks centuries of law." Lyra lifted her chin. Then maybe your laws are broken. A silence deeper than space itself filled the chamber. And then, without another word, Lyra turned and walked out. Jack by her side, not guided, not pushed, just walking. As one, in the shadows of the council room, one noble leaned to another. She has power now, yes. And if we do nothing, that human will become her protector. We cannot allow that. Plans began to form. Quiet, deadly. The human had shaken the pillars of Velmora, and now they would try to destroy him. The sun of Velmora rose slow and golden, painting the white palace towers with warm light. The guards stood stiff along the walls, but tension filled the air like thick smoke. Something ancient had started. Something forbidden. Inside the training garden, Princess Lyra stood barefoot on the grass. She was waiting. Jack arrived wearing his usual dusty clothes, with sweat on his brow. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, wiping his hands nervously on his pants. "I mean, we don't have to rush." Lyra's voice was soft, but full of quiet fire. "I've waited 16 years. I don't want to wait anymore." Jack swallowed. "Okay then." She held out her hand. It trembled. Jack reached out, slowly, carefully, and took it. It was the first time someone had truly held her hand, not to guide, not to lift, but just to hold. The moment their skin touched, a warmth spread through their palms. Their bond was no longer just words. It was becoming something deeper, something living. "Let's try walking," she whispered. Jack nodded. One step at a time, they moved slowly. Her feet slid over the grass. Jack supported her gently, not pulling, just guiding. Each step was shaky, but she refused to fall. Her blind eyes stared straight ahead. And as they walked, a faint shimmer began to glow around their bodies. Golden threads of light stretched between them, flickering like tiny stars. The bond was forming, raw, pure, and real. From the palace walls, spies watched nervously. One of them whispered into a communicator. "Phase 2 confirmed. The bond is growing. Orders?" A cold voice replied. "Interrupt it, quietly." Hours later, Jack and Lyra sat beneath a glowing tree. The soft hum of the tree's crystals filled the silence between them. "You did amazing," Jack said. "You walked all the way across the garden." Lyra leaned her head on his shoulder. "I could never do that before. You can now." "Because of you?" "No," he said, smiling. "Because of us." Suddenly, Lyra gasped. A sharp pain rushed through her chest. "Lyra?" Jack said, alarmed. She clutched her ribs. Her skin began to flicker with weak light. Something was wrong. From the corner of the garden, a servant dropped his tray and ran. A hidden needle had been stuck to the bottom of Lyra's water bowl. It held a special toxin, one meant to block neural energy. It was meant to destroy the bond. But instead of falling, Lyra glowed brighter. Jack grabbed her hands. "Focus on me." Her fingers shook. "It hurts. I'm here. Don't let go." Suddenly, Jack felt a jolt, like lightning shot through his spine. For a heartbeat, he saw inside her mind, her pain, her fear, her memories, being called cursed. Left alone in her cradle, sitting in darkness for years. And now him, a light in that darkness. He didn't let go. Neither did she. The toxin inside her body burned, and then dissolved. The golden glow between them pulsed like a heartbeat. Their bond had fought back. It had won. The would-be assassin, still hiding behind the trees, stared in horror. He whispered, "Impossible." Later that night, the royal healer checked Lyra's pulse. She should be dead. The healer whispered to the queen, "That poison stops all nervous activity." "But it's gone, burned out of her system." "How?" the queen asked. The healer looked toward the balcony, where Jack stood beside Lyra, watching the stars. "The bond," he said softly. "It's protecting her." In her room, Lyra held Jack's hand tightly. "I felt your memories," she said. "Just for a second," Jack nodded. Me too. I saw you. Alone in that broken space station, cold, hungry, fixing pipes no one cared about. Jack laughed softly. Yeah. My life wasn't exactly royal, but you survived, Lyra said. Like me. They sat in silence for a long time. Then Lyra whispered, Do you think the bond chose us? I think, Jack said, we chose each other. Far below, in a hidden chamber beneath the palace, a shadowy group gathered. The Chancellor stood at the head of the room. The bond has taken root, he said, and now it must be destroyed. What if it's too strong? One whispered, Then we separate them by force, the Chancellor growled. Even if it kills them. Both. The palace of Velmora sparkled like a jewel in the sky, but beneath its golden walls, darkness moved in silence. A secret door slid open deep under the eastern tower. Candles flickered along a narrow hallway, their light dancing on stone walls. Older than memory. In the center of the room stood the Chancellor, his eyes sharp and cold. Around him stood nobles, military officers, and old advisors, those who had always feared change. The bond is too deep now, one noble hissed. She walks, she speaks, she smiles, all because of him. It's unnatural, another spat. She should have died like the others. The curse must not spread. The Chancellor raised a hand. Then we act, tonight. He turned to a cloaked figure in the corner. You know what must be done. The figure nodded. I'll make it. Look like an accident. Meanwhile, far above them, Jack and Lyra sat on the edge of the moonlight balcony. The stars were clear tonight. Lyra's fingers traced patterns on Jack's palm as he told her stories of Earth, of fireflies, warm bread, and streetlights in the rain. It sounds magical, she whispered. It wasn't, he said. But somehow, when I say it to you, it becomes something more, Lyra smiled. You make me feel like I belong somewhere. You do, Jack said, with me. Just then, a strange wind blew across the balcony. It was cold, and it carried no scent. Unnatural. Jack turned quickly. A shadow moved behind the garden wall. His instincts kicked in. Lyra, we need to go inside. Lyra tensed. Someone's watching. Suddenly, the light crystals dimmed. Garden fell into near darkness. Jack stood and placed himself in front of her. Stay behind me. From the shadows, a cloaked figure lunged forward, knife raised. Jack didn't think. He tackled the attacker, both of them crashing into the stone floor. The knife clattered away, but this was no ordinary assassin. His strength was enhanced, and his eyes glowed faintly. A product of forbidden science. A weapon. The attacker punched Jack hard across the face. Blood splattered onto the marble. But Jack held on, wrestling to keep him away from Lyra. Lyra, despite being blind, felt everything through the bond. His pain, his fear, his rage, and then her voice cut through the chaos. Stop! The entire air shook. The crystals around them flared to life, glowing blinding white. The attacker screamed and covered his eyes. The light had come from her. Jack took the chance. One punch direct to the temple, and the attacker dropped unconscious. Guards rushed in moments later. Too late. Jack knelt beside Lyra, bruised and bleeding. Are you okay? He asked, breathless. She nodded slowly, touching his face. You got hurt, he smiled weakly. Better me than you. Hours later, the palace was in uproar. The king ordered a full investigation. The queen stood pale and silent, shaken by how close her daughter had come to death again. The chancellor, of course, pretended to be shocked. This must have been the work of outsiders, he lied. We must increase security. But one young officer had found the truth. He held a secret message chip with the chancellor's seal on it. He hesitated. He could expose him. End it now, but fear kept his mouth shut. For now, that night, Jack lay on a healer's bed, his side wrapped in bandages. Lyra sat beside him, her hand in his, I should have protected you, she said. You did, Jack whispered. With light. She nodded slowly. I don't know how I did that. I just felt your fear, and something inside me broke free. It saved both of us. Jack, she said, voice trembling. They won't stop. I know, but I don't want to lose you. You won't, he said, squeezing her fingers. They can't break this. And as their hands remained locked, the golden threads of the bond flared bright again, stronger than before. Stronger than fear. In the deepest shadows of the palace, the Chancellor stood at his hidden window, watching the garden from above. She's growing more powerful, he muttered. One of his allies stepped forward. Should we try again? No. The Chancellor said, now we change the game. He turned with a twisted smile. We attacked the human's heart. Asterisk, the royal plaza of Velmora had not seen a gathering this large in decades. Thousands of aliens from across the empire filled the wide marble grounds. Shimmering banners floated in the air. Royal guards stood with shining spears, and nobles whispered nervously. The air buzzed with rumors that the princess had summoned the people. The blind princess, the disabled one, the one no one thought would ever leave her tower. But today, she would speak. No one understood why. Some came out of curiosity, others out of fear. A few still believed she was cursed. But no one could ignore the truth anymore. Something powerful was happening around her. And at the center of it all was a human. Jack stood beside the royal platform, his wounds still healing, one arm in a sling. His heart raced. Not for himself, but for her. Behind the curtain, Lyra took a deep breath. Her royal robe shimmered with light blue energy threads. Her silver hair was braided with crystal beads. She looked calm, but her hands trembled slightly. Are you sure? Jack asked softly, standing close. I have to do this, Lyra said. You don't have to prove anything to them. I'm not doing it for them, she replied. I'm doing it for us. Jack nodded. Then let's go make history. He offered his arm. She took it. And slowly, step by step, Princess Lyra walked onto the stage. Gasps echoed from every corner of the plaza. It was true. She was walking. The blind, fragile girl, long mocked, long forgotten, stood tall before the entire kingdom. A hush fell over the crowd. The plaza turned into silence. She didn't wait for a fanfare. She didn't wait for permission. Lyra raised her voice, and the sound was stronger than anyone expected. I was born broken, she said. Or so they told me, blind, weak, a disappointment. A burden. She paused. Let the truth settle in the hearts of everyone listening. For 16 years, I lived in the shadows of this palace. Not because I couldn't rule, but because you wouldn't let me. Murmurs began in the crowd. The nobles shifted uncomfortably, but then, someone saw me, not as a problem, not as a cursed child. He saw a person, a soul worth talking to. She turned toward Jack. The golden threads of their bond shimmered in the air. He is not from this world, she continued. He has no title, no army, no wealth, just kindness, honesty, courage. Jack looked down, almost embarrassed. And because of him, Lyra said, her voice shaking slightly with emotion, I can walk, I can feel, I can live. The crowd stared in awe. I'm not here to beg for acceptance, she declared. I'm here to say this is who I am, and I will no longer hide. As she spoke those final words, a pulse of light erupted from her chest, flowing through the bond, connecting with Jack beside her. The plaza lit up. And slowly, something incredible happened. An old alien general stepped forward. He bent his knee. Then, a noble. Then a young soldier. Then one by one, thousands. Kneeling. Before the princess who had once been forgotten. Jack turned to her. They're kneeling for you, Lyra. She wiped a tear from her cheek. No, Jack, they're kneeling for us. Far above, watching from the highest window, the Chancellor's jaw clenched. She has the people now, one of his spies whispered. Then, the people must suffer for it, the Chancellor hissed. That night, celebrations lit the city, but in the shadows, agents of the Chancellor moved like ghosts. Their next plan was already in motion, and it would strike where Lyra was most vulnerable. Not her body, not her throne, but her heart. Night had fallen over Velmora. The celebration lights faded. Music quieted. The people returned home, speaking in awe of their princess, how she had stood, how she had spoken, how she had glowed with power. But while the city slept, danger moved. Once again, in the deepest part of the palace, Jack lay on the balcony, looking at the stars. Lyra sat beside him, resting her head on his shoulder. I never knew stars could be this peaceful, she whispered. They always were, Jack said. We just never had the time to look. She smiled. You've changed me, Jack. He shook his head. No, you've become who you always were. I just saw it before anyone else. Suddenly, boom. A distant explosion rocked the palace walls. Alarms blared. The balcony lights flickered. Jack jumped up. What was that? Before they could move, royal guards rushed in. Emergency, one shouted. Security breach in the throne vault. Lyra's eyes widened. My father. Without another word, she grabbed Jack's hand and began to move. No hesitation, no fear. She wasn't the blind girl anymore. She was their princess. In the throne vault, flames licked the walls. The Chancellor stood tall, a pulse weapon in hand. The king and queen cornered behind a broken pillar. You should have listened, the Chancellor growled. The bond was a mistake. Now I will erase it and reset the throne. The queen cried out, This is treason. No, the Chancellor hissed. This is correction. As he raised his weapon, crash. The vault doors burst open. Jack and Lyra entered. The light from their bond pulsed like a living sun. Step away from them, Jack shouted. The Chancellor sneered. You're just a janitor. Lyra stepped forward. No, he is my protector. Chosen not by law, but by fate. You're blinded by emotion, the Chancellor shouted. And you're blinded by fear, she replied. The Chancellor fired. Jack moved first, shielding her with his body. But before the pulse blast could hit, a flash of golden energy erupted from Lyra's chest, forming a radiant shield. The weapon's blast struck and vanished, absorbed by the bond. Lyra screamed, not in pain, but in power. The golden threads exploded outward, knocking the Chancellor backward. He hit the wall, unconscious. Silenced at smoke. Then movement. The king stood. The queen wept. And Lyra knelt beside Jack. Are you okay? She asked. He opened one eye and grinned. Was that you? She nodded. I told you. I won't let them take you. A few hours later, the royal council was assembled. This time, not in secret and not in the shadows. The king announced his abdication. I am old. The time of the past is over. Velmora needs a new light. He turned to Lyra. She stood tall beside Jack, her hand in his. I name Princess Lyra as the next queen of Velmora. The crowd gasped. And then clapped. And then cheered. No one questioned it anymore. The bond was too strong. The girl once seen as broken had become their brightest flame. Weeks later, a grand coronation was held. Velmora glowed from orbit. Thousands watched from every corner of the galaxy. And as Queen Lyra stepped forward in her golden robes, her sightless eyes full of purpose, she held the hand of the one who saw her first, Jack, the janitor. The outsider. Now titled first soulbound of the crown. And from that day on, Velmora changed. No longer did the people judge the weak or the different. Now they honored them, all because a human had sat down beside a forgotten girl and chose to listen.